Shabbos, finishing Siman Reish Nun Beis. We already finished it reading inside. We're going to finish it on the outside in the book, and we're going to begin Reish Nun Gimel, which is this book, Volume 1. So I've said a number of times in Fabragans that on Yud Kislev in a number of different areas that the Mittler Rebbe authored a Shulchan Aruch. We know the Alter Rebbe authored a Shulchan Aruch known as Shulchan Aruch Harav, but that the Mittler Rebbe authored a Shulchan Aruch, that's not really Shulchan Aruch Ben Harav. That's not really well known. What's interesting is that I'll discuss the source in a second, but we see that while by other Hasidic groups their main emphasis wasn't necessarily halacha. The main emphasis was tefillah, avodah, kashrus, tzaddik, emunah, bitachon. By Chabad, there was an emphasis of two worlds, Nigla and Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe wrote Shulchan Aruch. It's a huge thing. He didn't just write a Sefer Halacha. He wrote a Shulchan Aruch. That's why the Rebbe always, when he mentions the Alter Rebbe's title, he always mentions him as Bal HaTanya Bal HaShulchan Aruch. And we see the Mittler Rebbe followed in the same path. This is from a Sefer called Migdal Oz. Migdal Oz is a compilation of stories that was compiled by Rav Shia Munshine, and if there's anyone who knows how to poke a hole in a story, it's him. So if he brings it, it lends to its credibility. It's a story that was written by Rabbi Zriel Slonim, who heard it from Rabbi Yechiel Halprin, who was a chassid of the Marash. And this is what was written in the booklet of stories that Rabbi Zriel Zelig Slonim from Hebron wrote the following. I heard from Menachem Mendel, the son of the Marash, that the Mittler Rebbe compiled a Shulchan Aruch on all four sections of the Torah. And so too he wrote a commentary, a very wide commentary, on the Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe, similar to what we spoke about yesterday morning's Shiur, the Sefer Teres Chaim on Torah Or. We can just reading this, you want to cry of the loss that we have, that we don't have this available in printing. We have so many sfeikus in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, so many doubts, so many questions. Just imagine if we had the Mittler Rebbe's commentary. He says, like Teres Chaim, it would be a sea full of information, and a lot of our questions would be solved. So he said, what happened to it? The Chassidim would, they were very excited about it, so they would do Chassidish Gneva, it's called. They would grab the manuscripts to learn it themselves. This guy's learning Hilchos and Tilas Yadayim. The Alter wants to see what the commentary is. He wants to see how the Mittler Rebbe paskin. So he would sneak and take. They would pay off the gabbai. And it came to the point, unfortunately, we have this in every library where people borrow and don't return. One person borrowed a page, another person borrowed a half a page, and in the end, there was nothing left for it to be printed. There are thousands of manuscripts of the Mittler Rebbe's Torahs that are not in print. What we have is only a small glimmer of what he actually wrote. That's a shame.
Are they part of the collection in Russian?
They
exist somewhere though in manuscript form?
To ask Rabbi Levin, I don't know. I'm sure they exist somewhere. The question is where. Maybe they're by the library of the Kremlin.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, it's a touchy subject. I just spoke to him last night, actually. Last night, really, this morning. Rabbi Levin from the librarian. He has an arrest warrant in Russia.
Yeah, I saw it. I heard about that.
So it's a touchy subject. The fund may be taxes. Don't speak to me about Russian matters. Yeah. Okay. In the end of Reish Nun Beis, we learned the halacha. We concluded with this last week, that a person is not allowed to carry an object close to the start of Shabbos, and a person must check his pockets close to Shabbos. So let's just summarize that again, what we learned. And that was as follows. That the Chachamim were worried that if we allowed people to carry things in their hands and certainly in their pockets close to Shkia, then you may forget about them and come to carry outside. And therefore they said that you're not allowed to hold anything close to Shkia, if you plan on going outside of your. But we said that this only applies by Rosh Hashanah. So for example, this would apply to anyone who's in Crown Heights, but it wouldn't apply to a place that's a Carmelis, which is a rabbinical domain. It's only the issue of carrying there is only rabbinical, and most of the world is defined as a Carmelist, not as a Rosh Hashanah. Because to be a full-fledged Rosh Hashanah, you need to have 600,000 daily passerbyers, which is only fulfilled in the main, nerve centers, the main avenues of a city, of a big city. So here in Tsfat, we don't have to worry about that. And here certainly because there's an error, but even if there wasn't an error, even if you come to forget, it'll only be in a Siddur Rabbanan, therefore we do not make a decree. Regarding checking the pockets, we said, we read from the Shulchan Aruch, from the Alter Rebbe, Reish Nun Beis, it's a mitzvah for everybody to check their pockets close to Shabbos in order to verify that you're not going to carry anything, and we said in order so you verify you don't have anything muktzah in your pocket. Sometimes Motzei Shabbos we're still wearing our Shabbos clothing and we put something in our pocket, even though our custom in Chabad is not to do money transactions on Shabbos, on Motzei Shabbos, for different reasons, but sometimes it happens.
No money transactions? You can't go buy something out in Motzei Shabbos?
If you need to.
Oh.
If somebody comes to my door and wants to buy the book, The Laws of Erev Shabbos, Motzei Shabbos, I'm going to tell him, wait till tomorrow. Motzei Shabbos, he needs to know what to do tonight.
Taking your family out to a eatery to do a malav malsa?
Say there, okay, no. Say, Hachacham Yasa Bereisha. It's not a, don't take it too fanatically. It's, be balanced, It's a good question. What are the limitations? I guess it means don't, extravagances, don't use it, more what's not necessary for Motzei Shabbos. The Alter Rebbe adds, okay, no, I think this is it. Yeah, this is it, guys. That's the end of this book. Till we reach Siman, Reish Pei Hey. Moses Shnai Mikra, we'll get back to here. We have a little while till we reach them. Okay, we are beginning Reish Nun Gimel, which is the famous laws of Shehiyah, which we learned, when was it, 2 years ago? Yeah. So last time we learned it actually straight through here, so I'm going to do more of a shortcut version. We're going to learn it from the Shulchan Aruch inside, and I'll add the important details. We won't learn it as in depth. Fair? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll hear the Alter Rebbe's ruling and everything from the book.
Okay, I just forgot to bring the Mishnah Berurah. If you can, for the Shiur, no, it's okay. I have it on my phone, but it's better to use a physical book. So, B'Hashgacha Pratis, this Shabbos, somebody came over to me and asked me a wild question. And of course, the question comes as a result of ignorance of this siman of Reish Nun Gimel. A yeshiva, as many yeshivas do, came to stay here this past Shabbos in Tzfat. About 100 bachrim. They rented a few places, but they had one kitchen that they were going to use for the meals to eat together down here. And the bachrim were in charge of setting all the food up, and they put up the pot of cholent on top of the fire. So one of the bachrim walks into the kitchen. He sees Rachmana litzlan. He sees a pot of food that they're supposed to be eating on Shabbos sitting on top of an open fire. This is sacrilege. This is forbidden. This is Jewish tradition. It's against Halacha. So what does he do? He doesn't think twice, doesn't think to open up a Jewish book in the interim, of course. He right away makes a halachic decision to benefit his 100 friends and picks up the cholent pot and brings it onto the blech. There was a Shabbos pot, an electric plate that had room, and he pushed it onto the electric.
Already on Shabbos?
This is all on Shabbos.
On Shabbos.
Now comes another friend two. And he comes and he sees, hey, I came here before and the pot was on the open fire. This is wrong. You can't move it from an open fire to the blech on Shabbos. He went and he put it back. Ooh. And now a bucher who was, I guess, a little bit of a Talmud Chacham came to me and asked me, can the yeshiva eat the cholent? So all this comes from complete amaratzos of the laws of Reish Nun Gimel. Now, I will give that the laws of Reish Nun Gimel are complex. You can just see how long they are in this book. from page 35 until page until page 60. So it's quite a lot of halachas, it's quite a lot of details, but while there's a lot of details of different areas, there's some very basic, simple premises that come out of the ideas, which are not complex at all. The bottom lines.
Don't they mostly focus on Erev Shabbos activities, or what? So therefore, why?
I agree with yes. It's first of all, Reish and Gimel discusses the laws of Shiur and the laws of Chazal. It discusses both. So in truth, you're right. It's really about 100 pages when you add both of those subjects. But this was the mistake started with a lack of knowledge of Hilchos Shehiyah and progressed with a lack of knowledge of the laws of Chazal. So let's see if you guys remember. What's correct here?
You mean, how would they have done it if they
The first guy, let's go to the first guy. Was he right?
No, they had it. They can't.
It was an open fire.
Well, of course he couldn't put it on. He put it on the open. He couldn't put it on to the beginning of the open.
It was
fire.
on the open fire before Shabbos.
No.
He walks in on Shabbos. He sees it. He moved it. Was he correct in what he did? Why?
You can't move it.
Can't move it. Okay, so it's good we're doing Chazar.
Wait a second. From one place on the blech to another, yes, but on open fire, I don't know if you ever covered open fire to a blech. It's a question that never came up in our previous learning.
Okay, so let's learn. Good. Let's learn.
Was it proper to put it on the open fire? I thought you were asking. What about back up one?
Well, there's a few problems here. There's not just one
that
problem.
question looks like a big no. You can't put it on open fire before Shabbos.
Okay, but we're going to read it inside the first sif. It's a super long sif. Let's see how we can break it down. It's like these 50 pages of Mechaber wrote in one sif. So let's see how we can break this down. This is still really part of Erev Shabbos laws because it has to do with how to prepare your blech with food on Erev Shabbos. That's the topic. How do you prepare your to make sure your food is going to remain hot into Shabbos?
Do we know if the cholent was already fully cooked?
Great question. Great question. Okay, so those are the questions, of course, I asked him, as part of the investigation committee. So, but Reish and Gimel also then goes into, as I said before, heating the food on Shabbos itself. So it has chazar, and then it goes into insulation. So really from here, we're already beginning the heavy-duty Shabbos laws. Till now, from Reish and Beis till Reish and Beis, we've been doing everything that has to do with before Shabbos. Pretty much, having a guy do work for you. Well, we did some, I guess, Shabbos through a guy material. But now is officially the big start of the Shabbos malachas. So let's begin. Simonation and Gimel, Din Kira Batanli Tanakadeus Shabbos. This simon is based on the Talmud in Maseches Shabbos. I believe it's Daf Yudalid. It deals with setting up your blech. Aleph. Kiddush Yesur B'Kedera Seifson Al Piyah Kedera L'Mayla. So the reason why this simon is so complex, is because it doesn't deal with our modern day heating systems. It doesn't say electric plate, not even in Hebrew, it doesn't say it at all. It doesn't say plata, it doesn't say blech, it doesn't use all of these terms. It uses the old fashioned, what was around in Talmudic time, and I guess still in the times of the Mechaber. So he says the following: the kira type of oven, which is made like a pot, the says like you put the pot inside on top of it. And it has room for 2 pots to go on top. The law is as follows, just to see the picture of it. This is what we're talking about right here. All right, we have I guess you call this rectangular, one over here, one over here. So the pots sit inside.
And there's flames or coals in the bottom?
So this is not a 3D picture, obviously, but let's just make believe that this is the kira. You have walls down here, the coals are inside, the coals are sitting on this chair, and I have a hole over here and a hole over here, and I sit the pots inside. The handles prevent the pots from falling. It's a very cool way of cooking, I think. I think they should bring it back. I think it will cook really well. But because it's surrounded, the heat surrounds, It's not like an oven where it dissipates throughout the whole oven. Here, everything's going up, so it's hitting straight into your pot. It's interesting. We don't have that form of cooking today. So he says like this: the law of this type of oven is if it was fueled with gefes, which is basically olive waste, a very powerful fuel, a very good fuel. That was the what you can call the gasoline of today. That was the good fuel back then. Or with wood.
Olive what?
Olive waste.
Waste.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you press.
It's almost like a
your
charcoal made from
oil.
olives or so, like a charcoal made from olives or sort of something.
I'll be honest, I've never really seen what it looks like. I mean, I make, for Erev Shabbos, we make olive dip. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Something that can be lit and stay hot, obviously, something.
Yeah, if you put a wick in olive dip, I'm sure it'll light for quite some time.
Olive waste, it's gotta be like a charcoal.
This is probably dry.
Right, without-
olive, like when you press for olive
Right.
oil and you take what's left and you dry it.
You're saying it's dried.
I'm thinking.
I don't
I don't know.
I always
Because
picture-
there's no wick to be able to keep it going, so it's got to be with
Well,
flame.
the passion is what it is that after they take this is what it's described in Halacha, but when they take the olives and put it in the press and they press it through and all the oil has gone through, so all you have left is the skin, the flesh,
Yeah.
which is still saturated with some level of oil. And I guess it's maybe like a coal-like material, not hard necessarily, but the fact that it's not like oil that spreads everywhere. It's it stands still. So you throw it in your oven, you light it up, and it lasts a long time. But listen, we're playing a guessing game. I don't know. We have to. I'm sure there's still some places that still use this. We have to get some pictures of it. Or they would use good old firewood inside of this kira. It is forbidden to leave a food on top of it, even on Erev Shabbos, for the sake of it staying there into Shabbos. You want to warm something up Erev Shabbos, eat Erev Shabbos and take it off before Shabbos starts. No one has any issue with that. You're allowed to warm up food on Erev Shabbos. The issue here is you're going to leave it into Shabbos. You want it to stay hot into Shabbos, right? So this type of oven, if you're using this type of fuel, the good fuel, no good. Ela im kain, unless this bashal kotzak, unless it was cooked, all of its need was fully cooked. Fully cooked. The who mitzdamek viralai, and furthermore, not only is this food fully cooked, but it's fully cooked to the point that further cooking, this halacha in the Alter Rebbe is split into about 10 sif. Just those lines. It has to be fully cooked to the point of stomach virali, which means that further cooking will be bad. Two case examples of the definition of stomach virali. Case example number one is that this cholent has already given up all of its liquid. It sat on the fire overnight, gave up all of its liquid, or let's say it sat on the fire, you put it up already Thursday night, it's almost no liquid left. If it's going to burn anymore, if it's going to cook anymore, it's going to burn. You're going to get charcoal cholent. So that's called mistamic virali. So if I have this type of cholent, which further cooking down is not good for it, all I'm interested in is stay hot. I am not interested in condensing anymore. Then that's called mistamic virali. So the Mechaber says that even if you have good fuel in this kira oven, the olive waste fuel or the wood fuel, firewood fuel, it's okay to leave your pot on top of it if it has food of this degree of having been cooked already. But if not, then we suspect, if not, then we suspect that maybe you're going to stoke the coals, and therefore he says it's prohibited. So the kids of the Mechaber basically said, unless your food is not ready to be burnt, you cannot leave it on this oven into Shabbos.
And then practically it makes no sense to do it. So it's like then on a practical level, it doesn't make sense to do it. You're going to cook.
Correct.
And we get
Correct.
more and more
Correct.
dry or I don't know.
So if anyone ever serves you burnt food on Shabbos, just say, we're following the Mechaber. What do you want? This is a Jewish tradition from the first halacha and simulation of the Gimel. Says the Mechaber, you have another option. I forgot to say the second case of Mistamic virali would be, let's say my cholent has a nice amount of gravy. It has gravy. It has what to condense more. The problem is that I have 100 hungry bachrim. If this condenses any more, there won't be enough to go around for everyone to get a full bowl. So me, the cook, the chef, I don't want it to condense anymore. Not because it won't taste better, but because there won't be enough food. So whatever the case is that the balabais doesn't want to condense more, it's considered mistamic virali, and the Mechaber would give it the thumbs up and say, it's okay, we don't suspect for anything anymore. Another case example that is motor shayachai, if the food inside of the pot was raw, absolutely raw, shaloi nispashal klal, was not cooked at all, we don't suspect for it. If this food that you're placing on your kira oven on Erev Shabbos is completely 100% raw, then he says it's not a problem. You can put it on before Shabbos because What are we going to worry about? You're going to stoke the coals? What's that going to do? It anyways won't be ready till tomorrow. And by tomorrow, it'll be ready regardless if you stoke the coals. So the person won't have in his head this automation of or need or panicky instinct to stoke the coals. However, if it doesn't fit this category, meaning that it is a little bit started to cook a little bit before Shabbos and did not fully cook, or even if it fully cooked, but further condensation is beneficial for the food, for the owner, then chashinan, he's not allowed to put it on this kira. We suspect maybe he will stoke the coals, and is therefore forbidden to place the pot on top of it, unless he does the following. Meaning, now we're learning an exception. That even in a case that the food is still it's not fully cooked, or it's fully cooked, or further cooking is beneficial for it, and therefore ideally it's forbidden to leave it in a good fuel kira oven. Nevertheless, im garaf the hayin sheitzim and kolcham mekat and shekisa kolam be'efer l'mayit choyma b'masam mechaticha chayamut kilo yisachay kula daydekach masich daytamin afilu in a group. Rabbi says, however, that if you do the following, then it's mutter. One of three things. Either A, you remove the coals, you take the little shovel, the coal shovel, put it in, get rid of the coals. Then if you do that, it's mutter. I don't know what it'll accomplish with your food. Right. But no, I guess there's still some remnant, some dust that remains. So it's like, think of it like a bonfire. You get rid of the coals, but there's still some heat on the bottom. Or number two, you covered all the coals with earth, with sand, with earth, whatever it is, be'efer, in order to diminish its heat, or you threw into the pot a raw piece of meat right before Shabbos. When a person does this, then the Chachamim allowed him to leave the pot onto the open fire into Shabbos, as this shows that he's uninterested in the flame. Right? When he removes the coals or covers the coals to diminish the heat, he shows, I'm not interested in the flame, so there's no need to worry that he's then going to instinctively come to stoke the coals, which I find very interesting. Now, you can learn something interesting in psychology from this, that you can play around with your instincts by training yourself beforehand how to act, meaning that, let's say in this case, instinctively, we're saying the person is suspected that he will just take the rod and start stoking because the food is on it. So just do something, and you're not doing this because you really don't want it to cook. You do want it to cook, but you're doing this in order to get the heter of the halacha, to leave your food on. So you're going to cover the coals with earth. It's going to diminish the heat. And then automatically we said we no longer suspect that you will instinctively take the rod anymore, because you did an action to show your uninterest.
Is that the equivalent of using a blech? Is that what that does?
Correct.
The blech accomplishes that same
That
goal.
is the blech. The blech is this cover. Yes. We're going to elaborate on this.
For ancient history.
Right. This is first, this is a good history class, and then we'll get to modern day. Okay, so those are the three exceptions. The Mechaber then says, "Mutalis mechla kadeda b'sama chutzala b'muska b'kasha b'gvava mutalash esaleh afilu einu leguf." All this is regarding leaving the pot inside of the oven, the kira oven. But if you leave it to the side of it, there's no restriction, even if it has good fuel, because it's on the side. What is already a stoke going to do? It's not going to do much. So there's no need to suspect for anything. And all this whole restriction by the kira oven is only if you use good fuel. If you use bad fuel like straw and twigs, that's, everyone knows in bonfires when you use straw and twigs, you get a much bigger fire to begin the beginning, but it doesn't last very long. It doesn't do much cooking. So in such a case, you're allowed to leave your food in it because everyone knows that your stoking of twigs and straw is not going to do much. And therefore it's mutter even if it's not covered, if you didn't remove it, etc. The Ramah now adds, take here some tivas way to zuba defin shas b'nei machas gufa tuma shnei and gufa ktuma. Mutalashas al gufa ktuma afa bisha meisav hevelman she'ena gufa ktuma she'ena gufa ktuma. Okay, so the Ramah here adds that if you have two kira ovens, one next to the other, and there's fire in one of them, but not fire in the other one, they're like next door neighbors. They share the same wall. Okay, There's a mechitza between them. There's fire in one, not fire in the other, then you can put a food on top of this one, even though the fire in this one is not covered and it's good fuel. Because it's like the side. We said before, you let it put to the side. The Tana. Now we get to the second type of oven, says the Mechaber, back to the Mechaber. The Tana afilu husku b'kashu dvava, also afilu lismichla afilu mugor v'kot. A Tana oven, which is this oven over here. As you see, which oven has greater cooking power?
Concentrates.
Obviously, this one.
Concentrates.
Right? And it's a teepee. Everything is concentrated on the top. It's not as much dissipation of heat. So the Tanner oven is more severe, says the Mechaber. By the Tanner oven, everything's forbidden. Even if you are using weak fuel, twigs, straw, and even if you're not even putting it on top, you're going to everything's forbidden because every little bit of stoking by a Tanner oven can help, and therefore we suspect for the instinctive use of the rod.
Back quickly to the double oven where there's a fire on one side and not the other, the Ramah's allowance there?
Yes, because it goes on the same case as the Mechaber. He says you can always put by the side of a kira.
So would the Mechaber agree with that then?
By a kira, yeah, I guess so.
I'm
assuming, yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Because Mashiach by the Ramah here adds, so long as it's still Yat Seledes, it is mutter, it is asr, sorry, for this to be done. Which touches on the following question. If my oven is now off, it was preheated, but it's now off. It's 10 minutes before Shabbos, before Shkia.
Talking about this kind of oven.
I'm talking about modern day.
Okay.
Modern day oven. It's 10 minutes before Shkia, and we like to place our chicken, our food to be hot for Shabbos into a preheated oven that is now off. May one do so? So if it's before Shabbos, you didn't yet light candles, and seemingly based on what we just learned, it's mutter. Our ovens are not even defined as a Tanner oven, but even if you would define it as a Tanner oven, it would be mutter because it's no longer Yat Seledes.
The oven itself is not Tzedek.
What's that?
The oven itself is not Tzedek, or the food
Yeah,
itself?
the oven itself is not.
So you gotta make sure
Yat
it's
Seledes.
not steaming hot oven. You gotta be like the oven.
So the Alter Rebbe writes like this in Rishon Gimel Sefei. This is Rishon Gimel Sefei. And based on the word mother we just read, if the oven is cooled off to the point is only Yat Seledes, then it's permitted to leave a pot of food inside any type of oven. And so it's permitted to leave a pot of food on the top of the oven or next to it if it's Yat Seledes. Now, in this case example that I saw, I think I once brought this up in the class today. I don't remember. It wasn't too long ago. I was by somebody's house, and the Erev Shabbos rush, and they forgot. They usually do this, and they forgot to place the food inside of the oven before lighting candles. And now they already lit candles. They didn't think twice. They just went ahead and did it.
They put it in the oven.
They put it in the oven, and afterwards they say, "Oh, by the way, was it mutter for me to do it?" I'm like, well, you're already asking after the fact. Now the question should be, can we eat this tonight? Because once you already lit candles, it's already Shabbos. And on Shabbos itself, ends with all the Chazara, and there actually it is more stringent. The Alter Rebbe rules it's asur.
Is there still a stoking the coals issue? Is that the core issue? No, there's no coals.
No, it's more like because it looks like you're cooking.
Mm.
And even though it doesn't look like you're cooking, it's not Yat Seledes, so there's no cooking available. But I had a tough time understanding that. If it's not Yat Seledes, what's the issue? But just because you have a tough time understanding a law doesn't mean you don't have to do the law. It's like a police stopping you. Explain to me why I shouldn't be speeding on this road. Dude, it doesn't matter. You cannot speed.
Couldn't it be explained simply that by putting it in the oven's not Yat Seledes, but it still has some heat to it, and therefore you're increasing the
Yeah, but if it doesn't reach Yat Seledes, it doesn't reach a cooking point. Okay. Okay. I'm sure there's a swear out there.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little bit of a difficulty with it, but the bottom line is that the Alter Rebbe rules that it can't be done. But where it's tricky is because if it's cold, the oven's cold, you are allowed to. I'm allowed to open up my oven to store things in it on Shabbos, whether food or whether something else. No one says, "Michsi kinavash," it looks like you're cooking.
Yeah.
We never find such a precedent for such a decree that looks like you're cooking when you do such a thing. But if the oven is on, so let's differentiate clearly what we just read. Before Shabbos, no argument. It's not Yatziletis, it's okay. So even though we're going to learn that you're not allowed to leave food on an oven with an open flame, even today's modern ovens, unless the food was half cooked, etc. If the oven's not on, it's Yatziletis, there's no issue whatsoever. It's just to keep it warm. Okay, back to the Mechaber. Or are we back in the Mechaber?
Not allowed to do it if it was turned off, but there's still some heat there, but it's not the heat of the
If it's
level.
before Shabbos, it's okay.
Right, yeah, on Shabbos.
Yes.
Right.
Meaning she already lit candles. What she can do is ask someone who didn't yet accept Shabbos to do it. But once it's already Shabbos, that's it.
Shabbos for everybody.
Okay, and so if you can't even leave it next to the tanner, certainly you can't leave it inside of the tanner or on top, right? Because in all these ovens, you had two ways of cooking. Really, you could put on top, as I showed you before, the holes, or you can just open it up where the coals were and put it there. They used to have these. They used to sell these like metal. They still do it for people who do camping. There's like, what do they call it? There's like these metal seats where you can put it's like the what we have on our stovetops to hold up the pots, but it's just for bonfires that you set it up on top of the fire and it holds it up. Grates. It's like these special bonfire grates. In our house in Miami, we had a room stored with all of these survival stuff because my dad used to do work in Guyana and Brazil for his business, and they were in the Amazon, in the deep Amazon, and they had to use all this stuff. So we had all of these survival equipment, and I remember it. And one of these things, we had a number of these type of grates that are made for bonfires. So anyway, so these were placed inside of the oven. You can also, so obviously this would be forbidden to be done in a tanner oven even before Shabbos. Says the Mechaber, our third type of oven, which is the Kupach oven. That's this guy right here. It's basically a kira that's been chopped in half, just a square. So it's more concentrated in heat. It's more concentrated in heat than the kira, but less than the tanur, because it's not a teepee top. And therefore he says like this: if it has good fuel, then it has the same law as a tanur, meaning nothing's good. If it has bad fuel, then it has the same law as a kira. Now, the Mechaber here doesn't say what type of kira. Does it have the same status as a kira with bad fuel, which is everything is allowed for, or the same status as a kira with good fuel, which you have to remove the coals, or you have to cover the coals, etc., etc. You have to have one of the two. So he doesn't make that clear, and whenever in Halacha or in Talmud something isn't made clear, you are leaving the space for the poskim to come and debate about it. And that's exactly what happens here. Here we have a machlekes in the poskim. We can boil it down to a dispute between the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah. The Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch learns...
Very funny. You can boil it down.
The Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch rules that it has the same status as a kira that is fueled with bad fuel. I mean, you don't have to do anything to it at all. Let's see how he writes it. We're in Sif Vav. You can look in Sif Vav over here. If the kupach was fueled with straw or twigs, it has the same law as that of a kira, and he adds to the Mechaber's what the Mechaber left unwritten, which was fueled with straw or twigs. That's the type of kira it's compared to. Which law is that one may leave food on it before Shabbos, even if the fire was not covered or removed. If it was fueled with olive waste or wood, then it's the same law as a tanner full manner. So as I said, this is the sheet of the Alter Rebbe, the Mishnah Berurah. However, it goes like the poskim, who take a stringent approach and say, no, it has the same status as a kira that is fueled with good fuel, and therefore you have to cover the flames. Once again, this has no practical ramification to us, because we don't have these ovens today, unless you move to India.
The only difference between the first kind of oven and this is that this is a single burner versus a double burner.
Exactly.
But in the first oven, the double burner, they each have their own fire underneath it. So why is this?
Well, no, it's one. I don't know if they had their own fire. It was one big fire inside the oven.
So it was more.
Even if it did, that's not the point. The point is that when you have more space, Imagine if someone says we can turn the Tzemach Tzedek shul into an oven. We'll put a little fire over here and you leave your food here, it'll cook. Nothing will ever happen because it dissipates. The bigger the oven, the more energy you're going to have to be using. So when you're going to buy an oven, the smaller an oven you buy, the cooking can work better.
Yeah.
The im shachach, and now comes this is a very important punchline that the Mechaber now says. Finally, we want to hear, after we went through a history lesson, what about our ovens today? It says our ovens today have the same status as a kira. Now, even in the Mechaber's times, they didn't have electric ovens. What they did have, however, was the similar type of build of oven like ours, where instead of it having the on top holes and the inside, it just has an inside. No more top, just like us today. You can't put something on top of your oven for it to cook. Put it inside your oven. And it had a side door, you open up and you put the food inside. The difference of today and Mechaber's time is simply, we use electricity, and back then they used coal, they used firewood. But in essence, it's the same idea. So, and that's basically the halacha. This is the source, and no one argues on this. Our heating systems today all have the status of a kira oven.
So how do you differentiate between good fuel and bad fuel in a current oven?
So our oven today is not only good fuel, but it's much better than the fuel that they ever had back then that they can dream of.
Okay.
I mean, let's think about it. I mean, the truth is that it depends also on the amount of fire you put in. If you only a little bit of wood, it's not going to have but the fuel itself is very, very good quality. Gas, you can't get better quality than that when it's, you have pure flame.
Or electric.
Right, okay, electric too, I guess.
By the way, if you go to the Meiri Museum near the Bratslav Shul, they have the metal ovens that are like this, with the holes in the top, etc. So you can actually see what it.
The Meiri Museum, where is it?
Yeah, right. You know where
the Breslov Shul? I mean, there's a Breslov Shul right here. The big Breslov Shul?
The big Breslov Shul, right before you get to it, on the right-hand side is the Meiri Museum,
yes.
which is the sort of the history of Tsfat.
Wow.
And there's
interesting.
In there on the second floor, they have some of those ovens.
Okay. They have the other kinds too, or just the kira?
So maybe we'll go on a class trip.
Yeah, what about it?
They give us a learning discount.
I don't remember if they have the single one. I remember the double ones that are there. It's like looks like tin, like sheet metal almost.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Good.
Field trip.
Very good. Now the Mechaber begins discussing, but think about, we've only so far discussed ovens. We never discussed stovetops. So stovetops is discussed later on. Let's see where it is.
Stovetop.
Right. Until now, we've been discussing just the oven itself.
That's a baseline. Good fuel.
Right. It's a single halacha in the oven. That's what I know. Yeah. 65, 23. Over here.
That's a big question.
Okay, but there is, the Alter Rebbe does write about the stovetops, and he writes that they have the same status as a kira.
One would think Tanner, because it's very intense heat.
See where I saw it, but he definitely does write about it. At the beginning. Okay, I'll have to look it up again where I wrote about it. Oh, here it is. Yes, Sif Yud Zayin. It was far out there. I don't know why it wasn't written together with everything else. So I'll tell you, he writes like this: Ice and Kires, those ovens that don't have an inside at all, they're just a flat,
Like a stove.
like a stove. Shutes v'teichen legaben echad mut lachzil lahem. It's mutter to return to them. So
Return to them?
He's writing about the laws of Chazara. He brings it up, but he doesn't write about the laws of Shiur. He writes about the laws of Chazara. Maybe that's also why I brought it. But the point is that we learn from there that its status, the status of a stovetop, is the same as a kira.
Single kira or double kira?
Well, the single kira is called a kupach. It's not called a kira.
Got it. So it's a double.
So if it's called a kira in halacha, that means double.
Yeah. One wouldn't think though, because a single stove with one flame.
I'll tell you why, because it has all the room in the world to dissipate.
Okay.
That's why.
Got it.
Right?
That's an answer. That's a good answer.
Yeah. But correct, you wouldn't necessarily think it would be, if not for it being written, it would be, hey, what's its status?
So it's good fuel, right? We already decided.
It's good fuel, but it's open. So with that, in other words, we have the minimum oven is kira. You can't get less than that. There's no such thing as less than that. So that's the minimum. Now, says the Mechaber, what happens if someone transgressed and returned and left it on top of this open fire into Shabbos? One second, I skipped. Somebody transgressed and left the food on top of this open fire into Shabbos. Remember, the Mechaber holds if it's fully cooked, but even if it's fully cooked, but it's not detrimental, you can't leave it on top of a good fueled kira. Which, let's just translate today, you can't leave it on top of an open fire on top of your stove or on top of a fire, on top of a working oven. An oven that's on. Right. Mutter, afiluhu mistamik v'yafalin. B'di'evet, if you transgressed and you left the food there, then you're allowed to eat it on Shabbos, even if further cooking is beneficial for it. It says like this. If you did it, if you knew the halacha and you transgressed, you learned Reish Nun Gimel, you said, I don't like these laws, I don't care about them. I'm going to purposely leave my fully cooked cholent that is not yet fully cooked to the point of being detrimental on top of an open flame. Says the Mechaber, if you are a transgressor who is doing it with prior knowledge, what do we call that in the criminal cases? What's the criminal terminology when you intent?
Knowingly and willingly.
Oh, there's manslaughter. There's there's different levels of. Anyway, so if you intentionally prepared to do this, you intentionally knew that this is wrong, and you did it anyways. It's usher in all cases to eat it till the Shabbos is over. By the way, referring to a Jew who did tshuva. Or referring to a Jew who doesn't care about Reish Nun Gimel, but won't dare to eat food that has a chashash of not being allowed to eat. Because otherwise, if he's going to transgress this, you're telling him you can't eat. I don't care about that either. If I don't care about this, I don't care about that, right?
The circumstance that where the food will be burnt if it stays on longer, that is allowed then? Even
yes, the Chatchila. Yes,
okay. So
that's just a Mechaber. That's not how we rule about it.
Right.
We were more lenient.
But if the Bacher was going by the Mechaber and the food happened,
they weren't Sephardi. Mm-hmm. If they were Sephardi, then there would be what to talk. They were not Sephardi, they were Chassidish Bachrim. But if they were Sephardi, I do agree with you. There is definitely, the first Bacher would definitely have a good claim. It's still not correct what he did because it won't help the situation. It's like somebody who turned on the light on Shabbos by mistake. It's not going to help if you turn it off. It's not going to erase the action you're
the one who put it on the flame. There was one Bacher who just put it on the flame.
The second Bacher.
That's the first.
That's on Shabbos itself.
No. The first one who started
on Erev Shabbos.
Yeah, right. He put it on.
So correct. He did something wrong according to the Sephardim.
Right.
Correct.
That's what
unless it was Mitzvamic virality. I have no idea. I didn't ask him that question because it wasn't relevant to the. Maybe further condensation would have been bad for it, and therefore would have been much even according to the Sephardim. I didn't have to go that far in my interrogation because it wouldn't make enough kamina to the way we rule. But he says like this, that the Evid, if it was already done, so long as it was fully cooked and was done by mistake, lack of knowledge, it's okay. You're allowed to eat it. However, if it wasn't fully cooked, then you're not allowed to eat it. Okay.
How can you argue lack of knowledge when let's say there's a flame? I mean, who doesn't know?
No, they know there's a flame. They have lack of knowledge of the halacha.
Is that possible in the time that you're talking about, that they really wouldn't know
the level of ignorance is very high today. It's very,
what could be the reason? You're saying what could be the reason? They could figure you're going to leave it alone. It's on a flame. You can put it.
Some people don't listen. I'll tell you the truth. Most people actually are machmir. They think that you can never leave any food on an open flame. They think the opposite because they're so used to the blast. So they think you can never leave anything on an open flame. And that's what led the second bacher to do what he did when he came in and he moved it from the open flame.
Yeah.
So there's, as I said, it's complex. There's complexities here. But the bottom line is that you would only know that you can leave food in an open flame on Shabbos if you learned the simon. The point is, the person who didn't know that there's an issur at all, and he went ahead and did so, then if it was already fully cooked, the food can be eaten. If it wasn't fully cooked, it cannot. This is just the Mechaber's perspective, which is for Sfarim. We don't rule this way. We're going to continue. Haga. Right? So this is the concept that we said before, that it's not enough to wait till after Shabbos is over. You actually have to delay until the amount of time that it would take to cook it after Shabbos. When did I get this? I got the Shiur recently, and I told them this. They have to wait. I remember, I think it was a chulent. They have to wait until after Shabbos. The amount of time it would take to heat up the chulent, that's how long they have to wait to cook the chulent. Sorry, that's how much they would have to wait till after Shabbos.
That's a long time to cook chulent from scratch or to heat it up?
It's about 2-3 hours, I would say.
Okay.
Now the Mechaber goes and skips to the laws of Chazara, which is the laws of returning foods on Shabbos itself. And this is what makes it so confusing. It would have been very nice if it was just organized like me. A chapter on Shiur, a chapter on Chazar, right? Makes sense. The laws before Shabbos, the laws on Shabbos. But here, it got all entangled in one sif. So you have to separate the threads. But I'm thankful. It leaves me work to do. It says like this. If a Gentile went and took your chulent and put it on top of a flame on Shabbos to heat up, we view it as if you forgot and left it there into Shabbos. Meaning, just like when you forgot and left it into Shabbos and it was fully cooked, we rule you're allowed to eat it. So too, if a guy took your pot and left it and put it on an open flame on Shabbos itself, you're allowed to eat it. So this is explained. This is referring to a case that you didn't see the guy do this. He just went ahead and did this on his own. So based on this, we can understand this Yid on Shabbos who went ahead and took the chulent pot and put it back in the open flame without permission. Should we view him like a guy?
No, not a guy.
Well, let's say it was a guy that did it. The guy's the one who set it up. He comes in and says, "What is this?" Somebody took the chulent and put it on the fire on the blech. He brings it back onto the open flame. Nobody's in the kitchen.
What was the first law you just gave?
That's the case. That's exactly the case I just read in the Mechaber.
Okay, so it said that it's a goy.
Yeah. But if the Rosh Hashiva was standing there and it says, smiling when the guy was doing it, then it's ruled that it's not the same case. It's as if he's doing it. So what happens if a Jew doesn't? So he says, however, if a Jew goes ahead and does it, then it's as if it's considered the same halacha as someone who purposely, meaning with prior knowledge, transgressed and did it, which we said it's always usher.
That's the putting back in the flame, not the intermediate move of the bacher who put it on the blech.
Correct.
This is the flame issue.
So here we have a pure halacha, black and white, that when it's a Jew doing it, the food becomes prohibited on Shabbos. Again, we move from before Shabbos to on Shabbos. So we're taking on Shabbos, putting it on the open flame. Chaber rules that it is forbidden to be eaten.
Why would anybody assume that could be allowed on Shabbos? Why is that even a question that we're asking or bringing up here?
I say this all the time. When you don't learn, everything is very simple. Either mutter or usher. Everything's super simple. Because you don't have the details to understand the complexity of things. So everything is very simple. So to one, it's very simple that you can never leave anything on an open flame. And to another, it's very simple that you're not allowed to put it on a blech and you have to put it back in the open flame.
Okay. They're thinking probably that since it's fully cooked, there's no cooking going on. They're thinking maybe that's
correct. Okay, well, that's whatever it is. I don't know. I didn't go into it. But bottom line is that it sounds like, from what we just read, that what should be the answer to this case? What should I answer then? Yesterday in this case. In this case, it happened yesterday. What should I answer?
About which move?
Bottom line, can I eat the chulent? Can I eat the chulent?
chulent?
Forget about everything else. Can't the chulent be eaten? They're hungry. They want to know if they can eat the chulent.
I think that's
they have this huge chulent for 100 bachar.
After Shabbos.
It's not just 100 people, 100 bachar.
I think after you have to go to the amount of time it takes to cook after Shabbos.
So what I answer them is the following: that 100% was usher to do what was done without question, and usher to do the last guy that went ahead and put it back on, for sure it was usher to do. And according to the classic ruling, everything should be usher till after Shabbos Kadesh Yasser. However, and this is an unwritten heter, it's not written anywhere. I even tried to find it in my book where I put it yesterday. I don't remember even where I put it in my book. But it's basically, it's a halacha that touches on a general topic, not just having to do with the laws of Shiur, but in general, when somebody does something wrong with your item and the Chachamim find that a person who transgressed, does he have the power to forbid my item? So if the Rosh Hashiva went ahead and did this, then of course it's asur, because he's a balabais. He's the balabais. But if somebody who doesn't have permission, he just went on his own, he's not the one in charge, he just goes ahead and does it on his own initiative, then who says that he has the power to enact a fine of the sages on all of us innocent citizens? And the answer is that there's a tshuva of the Marsham and other Gedolei HaPachreinim that they don't. And therefore, what I told him is that the person who did this is not allowed to eat from it till after Shabbos is over. Kadesh Yasu, leave him a little bit. Not the person who moved it from the fire to the blech. The person who wanted to fix what he did and moved it from the blech to the open fire, he can't eat it till after Shabbos, but everyone else in the yeshiva can eat it. So now they got an extra bowl. Wow. 99.
Very interesting. Can we address for a moment the move from the fire to the blech?
So we're going to learn then the laws of Chazara when we get into it. And bottom line is that it's not a problem to do so. It's not a problem to do so because the blech is considered a covered flame. Usually that's what a blech is. It's covered flame. If it's a plata, then it's not covered, but it's still, you can't change the temperature, so it's as if it's covered. And you're just moving it, picking up, moving it. So you fulfilled all the 6 conditions of Chazara.
Not 6, because you didn't have the one where Chazara.
The fire has to be covered in the destination, not in the current location.
Okay, but it's not a situation where you kept your hands on it. It was just sitting there alone on the fire, and it's a little bit different.
No, but the keeping your hands is from when you remove it from the fire.
I see.
So I picked it up and I put it down. So he did nothing. The guy who did it did nothing wrong, but there was no reason for him to do it.
But he could have left it on the fire. You're saying?
It was half cooked before Shabbos. It was fully cooked before Shabbos.
Oh,
so if he was starty, then it would have been wrong to have done that if it wasn't the stomach around, right? But it still wouldn't help to move it. Either the food is usher or the food is mutter. It makes no difference if you move it or not. So, it was a whole buildup of events that, one mistake led to another. Even if you're Sephardi, the only question is the food mutter? The question is not, should I move it to another place? It doesn't have to.
Don't we have to determine the factor of was it congealed to the point or dry to the point of that it burnt anymore?
No, but it was hot.
Mm-hmm.
It was hot. There's no bishlach or bishul by hot liquids. Mm-hmm. It's hot. It's on the fire. Mm-hmm. Now the Mechaber introduces the second opinion. So we had here, look at this whole sif based on one opinion.
Hot meaning it was going to burn if you kept it on. It was just about before Shabbos putting it on the fire. It was allowed. The only reason it was allowed.
According to the Mechaber's first opinion, it's allowed only if it's mastamik virale, meaning further cooking is detrimental. According to the next opinion, which is the way we rule, okay, Ashkenazim, that's allowed even if it's only half cooked. So let's see. The Mechaber then introduces a second opinion, which says the following, and in general, whenever the Mechaber in his Shulchan Aruch brings 2 opinions, stam the yesh omrim halachic is stam. Whenever he brings an opinion as a plain opinion, he just writes it as it is. But then in the end he writes, oh, by the way, there are other opinions who say the rule is that his main ruling is like the first opinion. Also in my books, I do the same thing. I always try to bring all the opinions, and when something is not clear from the Alter Rebbe, so I'm kind of forced in the actual answer to bring also the other opinion instead of putting it, in the footnote, because it's not for certain that this is the correct approach, and according to the Alter Rebbe. But I'll write, it's forbidden or it's permitted to do so, and then I'll write in the next sentence, however, some place can rule. So a person who learns that, what do you understand? Should you do it or should you not do it? So you have some people who their minds are always after the howevers. They're however Chassidim. So whenever they see, if it's for being lenient, being stringent, so whenever they see the however, but there's I saw that there was, I once had someone ask me a shayla answer, but you wrote in a footnote based on a Gemara, an opinion in the Gemara that it's mutter.
The bacher needed some information that he didn't have. By the time he's moving it off on Shabbos, moving it off the fire, he needed some information to understand. He needed to know if it was fully cooked based on what you're saying.
Correct.
And he needed to know other
Correct.
things, right?
Correct.
But he didn't know. He didn't know any of that.
I don't know if he did or didn't.
So can we get to the, does it help to move it to the blech then?
You have to know that it's fully cooked, 100%. But let's get back. So the bottom line here is that the Mechaber's main rulings like the first opinion, but he introduces a second opinion as we'll now see. So he's saying the second opinion that so long as the food is cooked, K'maichel ben Drusai, which he says here was a person. Drusai was a man. It was a man's name, a Jewish robber, that he would eat his food always on the run when it wasn't yet fully cooked because he always had a lot of customers to rob, so he never had time to eat a meal, the poor guy. And he made it into the Shulchan Aruch. He became famous in the Gemara. He's famous in the Gemara and Shabbos. That this is what we call it after Ben Drusai. And it's considered basically food that's not yet fully cooked. Al Rabbi here explains that it's defined as follows. It's defined as food that you would cook, that you would eat on the run. Meaning it's cooked enough to eat on the run.
Fast food.
Fast food? Well, fast food can be fully cooked.
I get eating on the run.
Let's say a bowl of soup. So we all know that to be served soup that isn't hot isn't very pleasant. But if you're in a rush, you're going to eat it. But to be served cold soup when you're on a run, I don't know if you'll eat it. You probably won't. So if it's warm enough to eat on the run, then you're good. Meaning it's cooked enough. Here it's not talking about warmth, we're talking about cooking. It's cooked enough to eat on the run, and it's good. So too, if it's cooked enough that it'll anyways be ready, fully ready by the time the main course comes for the meal, then there's no reason to suspect you're going to take a stoke, you're going to stoke the coals, because for what? It's anyways going to be ready enough because it's already half cooked. So that's what we rule it is. And that is the second opinion. The Alter Rebbe here in the Shulchan Aruch brings both opinions. The first opinion in the Mechaber, which the second Yesh Omrim, and he concludes that the minhag is like the second opinion. He writes, "Upon Halacha, the custom is already spread to be lenient, like the first opinion, that if the food has been cooked to the point of underside, then it may be left on any flame over Shabbos." Until next week.
That's all the bacher would have had to know. All he would have to know that it was fully cooked, and therefore then he could have just
Even
left half cooked. Then he could have left it on the flame.
Exactly.
But he thought. So
So the bacher who put it on top of the flame knew that.
Right. Okay. Because he knew it was fully cooked, but the other guy didn't know he had that kavanah, probably, right? He didn't know the other bacher had that.
I didn't know the halacha.
Okay, and what about then if it wasn't fully cooked, the proper thing was to move it to the blech?
If it wasn't fully cooked?
Yeah, I mean, it
Before
wasn't half.
If it wasn't half cooked before Shabbos, you would have to move it.
No. After we discovered it on Shabbos.
No, you can't. It's not fully cooked.
So the blech is better than the flame.
But you're cooking on Shabbos when you move a non-cooked food to a flame.
No, not on the flame.
It doesn't matter. If you move it to a heat source, if I put an uncooked food, an unfully cooked food onto a heat source on Shabbos, I'm transgressing the cooking
Okay,
prohibition.
but what about leaving it on the flame would have been better?
From before Shabbos?
No, the one who discovered it on the flame on Shabbos.
Yeah, you should have left it there.
That's what I'm saying.
100%. In all cases, you should leave it there. If the food was fully cooked, then what's the issue? Just leave it there.
Right.
If the food was not fully cooked, then you can't move it. It's also to move it off the flame to another flame.
Did the blech consider a flame?
Of course, it's a heat source. It doesn't matter.
It's a lesser one, no?
The second you take it off, that's it. The cooking stopped. The second you put it back on, you're not cooking on Shabbos.
So it would have been better to gamble, I guess, if you didn't have information, better to have gambled. What about just taking it off the flame at all? Just completely taking it off the flame, would that have been a good move?
Bottom line is that the answer is, don't do anything until you open up the books or ask.
So I'm asking that, open up the books, what does the book say about taking it off the flame? Bacher comes and he says,
But there's no reason to, because the food was half cooked.
He didn't know that though.
But he can assume it. Why assume the food wasn't half cooked? Most people have half cooked food. Why assume someone did something wrong?
Okay.
Why assume somebody transgressed?
Okay, that's an answer. Okay, that's the bottom of the thing, I think. All right, that's not so simple.
I told you it's complex, but the bottom line is not so complex.